We'll go ahead and get started. Really grateful to have everybody here today on what is going to be an exciting day. We're going to hear a little bit about who got the awards for the first round of the Community Renewable Energy Grant Program. That'll happen in about a half an hour. And one thing that I will flag is I haven't seen the list either. So I'm very, very excited to learn with our advisory committee and members of the public, although we see some folks that are members of the public that were applicants to the program too. So you might have more intel than I do. So I'm going to go ahead and move us into our program today. One thing is that we're just a heads up, we're recording the meeting. We encourage you to use the chat to ask questions. Just know that the Department of Energy staff will be monitoring the chat. And hang on, I just thought of something I need. Really quick, sorry. Okay. Have talking points for myself and I don't have them open. So I'm going to make somebody send them to me so I don't miss anything along the way today. And then we also ask that folks use the raise hand function to indicate interest in asking a question or making a comment so we can call on you. We're going to make sure that we grab our attendee for the most part, this is a committee meeting. We save space for public comment. But the advisory committee folks should be able to mute and unmute themselves, but please do raise your hand and we'll grab you, but we just want to make sure that we use that in order to keep a somewhat organized virtual conversation. Just mention the public comment we'll have. That's where members of the public can make comment or ask questions. One thing I would love to have folks do is to just go ahead and introduce yourselves, whether you're a member of the public or an advisory committee member or a member of our staff. Introduce yourself in the chat. You can let us know your name. You can let us know your affiliation, where you work. If you plan on making public comment today, just let us know when you're introducing yourself so that we can make sure that we have enough time at the end of the meeting. It's a short meeting today, so we might need to make some changes or speed through some things if it looks like we have a lot of folks that want to address the advisory committee. So if folks can do that, that'd be great. And then we've used WebEx together, the advisory committee, for a long time, but does anybody have any questions about using WebEx? I know somebody just put at the top of the chat the information for phone users. You can press *3 to raise your hand. Oh, wow, this is news to me. Control-Shift-R to raise your hand, or you can also raise your hand if you kind of look under reactions. It's the fist raised. It's not really very hand-like, but like a fist raised under reactions in the bottom of the screen. So any questions? I don't see any hands up or any questions in the chat on the sort of technological stuff here. Cool. Let's see. Just a very quick mention of some of this we already talked about, but we at the agency try to run all of our public meetings with a set of community agreements just to make sure that we're inclusive and respectful and also productive in our meetings. So just quick going over those: being present and ready to learn, being respectful, remembering that learning happens outside comfort zones, listen to learn and not necessarily to respond. This is the Christy split one because I'm a big talker. And then being flexible and patient around technology needs or changes. And if you need anything, ask for it. You can ask me. I had not introduced myself. I'm Christy Split, our government relations coordinator and person who runs a lot of our meetings at the Department of Energy. And then Patricia, another one of my coworkers, can also go ahead and handle any questions if you want to be in touch with her. So really quickly, this is our agenda for today. We're going to talk about who applied overall, the review process and the outcome, exciting, and then what's next. I've already covered objectives, logistics, and agenda. One theme that I want to just mention quickly is that that today you're going to hear from staff, and this is exciting for our advisory committee who have dealt with non-program staff for the most part in the past. So one of the things we wanted to do today is make sure that our advisory committee and others had a chance to get to know the staff that we've hired on to work specifically on the Community Renewable Energy Grant Program. And as each of them come on board, I'd love it for them to introduce themselves. One person I don't think is presenting today is the manager for the program. So I don't know if Pondian wants to say hi. He just waved his hand. That's Pondian. He's the manager for the program. But we're really excited that we are, as far as I know, pretty close to fully staffed up at this time, and are just rocking with this new program. So that's a landmark in itself. So without further ado, let's talk about who applied, and you can meet Clay.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Clay Deckert. I live and work in Bend, and I am a program analyst, or incentive analyst is the title, and I've been assigned to this Community Renewable Energy Grants Program, and I've been with the Department of Energy since April, late April of this year. I just look forward to continuing to work with you as the program moves ahead. So this slide shows the variety of applicants and the number of applications submitted by applicant type. So we've got a really good variety of public bodies and others that have applied. I'll just let that sit for a minute because it's a lot of information. Unless you guys read it before we go on, and we'll see sort of the same data indicated in a map next. But let's just let that sit for another 10 or 15 seconds so people can scroll up and down the list. All right, when you're ready, we'll go to the next slide and take a look at the map. Okay, and now the map is just showing the same thing, but it's showing project locations and the type of application by the 4 different varieties of grants we had through the 4 different opportunity announcements. And that key is down in the lower right there. It just shows the spread of the project locations. Next slide, please. All right, what type of projects we've got? The majority of applications included net metered solar panel installations of a variety of types. But applications also included biomass, biogas, and hydro generation of electricity. Resilience measures ranged from short-term backup for small critical circuits to sustained off-grid power for community services in the event of emergencies for entire buildings. Some projects included their community service operations centers, and some were designed to allow public buildings to serve as emergency shelters. You know, something else during the day, a school or something else, but then they were offering for it to be a community shelter in the event of an off-grid event, emergency, or something like that. And then several of the proposals also included electric vehicle charging systems. Yeah, so all over the map, just kind of like the application had a lot of variety, so did our the opportunity announcements had a lot of variety for renewable energy, and we hit a lot of the marks there. We hit a lot of different technologies. So
thanks so much, Clay. I'm curious, after these first few slides where you got to see the different types of applicants, are there any questions before we kind of move on to the next slide? I don't see any hands up, but I'm gonna make you all talk in just a second, so get ready. So advisory committee, I want us to talk, like I just said. And I don't know if it's helpful for folks to turn off their cameras, if that'll be like a way to like kind of foster more conversation or not, but let's just see. Yeah, you get to choose your own adventure. But the first question we wanted to ask if there were gaps that you saw in the list of applications, and we can absolutely go back and look at that. Any things that we just shared, or if there was anything that jumped out to you that you saw missing. And I'll share one if there's silence after I count to 10. Can you go off mute, Stan? I can't hear you. Now you're on mute. Uh-oh. I don't know why we can't hear you. You want to try again? Oh, no. Maybe if you talk while you're muted, it will work. No, we don't have any sound for you. Well, Patricia, if you could help
Now?
Stan. Oh yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay.
Yay.
We're moving, so I have computer issues. So, um, okay. I would help. All I was trying to say is it would help if we could go back to that list.
Yeah. Yeah, we can go
Um,
to any one of them. So do you
but
want to
I'm
start with
also
the district?
extremely excited to see that we have projects in 28 of the 36 counties. So,
Yeah, very exciting. I agree. So I'll just kind of, this is the who applied list, and I'll share my gap that I noticed only because someone else pointed it out to me. They were asking me how many school districts had applied. And you'll see we had 2 public school districts and a public charter school apply. So that was an area that I thought was underrepresented, especially considering like the literal project we kept sharing as an example was a project on a school. So it's just kind of interesting to see that gap. And so one thing we're doing is we're doing a webinar with some of our school associations, ideally the School Board Association and the School Administrators Association in the state, to teach them about the program and hopefully maybe drum up some more district interest. Does anybody else see anything on here? And then I can toggle us to, I suppose we can look at the map and see if there's anything that you note. I mean, there are a lot of people that live on the North Coast and not a lot of applications came in, not a lot on the South Coast. And then the obviously the south east corner of the state is pretty sparsely populated. So I mean, to us it felt like a decent spread. But if anybody sees anything here that they see any gaps, or on this what types of projects list? All right, Gail has her hand up, and actually we need to make Gail an attendee. So if somebody wants to make Gail an attendee so she can control her own fate. I saw her hand go up and then it went down. But at least we can get her up as a panelist because she is one of our advisory committee members. And then go ahead, Gail, if you wanted to come off mute and not say anything or whatever, go for it. And if you don't, that's fine. Okay, great. Well, I guess that means that there's no gaps that really jumped out to anyone other than the one that Representative Owens and I, or what I caught because Representative Owens asked. But if anybody on the advisory committee thinks of anything and they want to let me know, oh, Phil, you're there. I didn't see your hand up. Great, go ahead.
Because of the scale of the projects we're talking about and the eligible entities, this gap might make sense, but I would have hoped to have seen something geothermal related, if not like power generation, ways of using, heat or cooling out of the ground, to meet some of the energy needs or, offset some of the energy needs of public buildings. I mean, is that the reason why? Just because, these types of entities and those types of projects, they're not a good fit for this program, or is that an actual gap?
I'd be interested if anyone else has thoughts on that. I don't necessarily know the answer, but I'd welcome staff from Odo or other folks on the line that are part of the advisory committee if they have any thoughts. Go ahead, Oriana.
Yeah, I know of some geothermal projects that are coming together for the next round. I think there was just a lack of readiness and perhaps a lack of awareness for this first round of applications on that front.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So there's another gap. Great. Well, if anyone thinks of anything else, the chat's open. Members of the public, if you have anything that you want to flag as gaps that you're seeing, go ahead and throw them in the chat and we'll go ahead and move the conversation on. Thank you so much. The threat to turn cameras on might come true if y'all are as quiet on the next conversation. All right, James, you ready?
Yeah, thank you. So my name is James Kogel. I'm a policy analyst here at Odo. I've been with the program since November last year. And I'm going to walk us through this the review process for the first round. So following the close of the application, program staff went through the application information to ensure the projects were eligible for the program and had the minimum required information. This process took about 4 weeks due to the level of interest in the program that we had. And in total, 58 of those 68 applications passed that eligibility and completeness review. Next slide, please.
James, go ahead. My monitor just turned off for a sec, but it'll be back in a sec.
Okay. So next came the competitive review process. For this, the Oregon Department of Energy recruited external reviewers to complement Odo staff reviewing the applications, and we're extremely grateful for their time and energy in reviewing those applications. We sent around a memo to the advisory committee members last week outlining the recruitment and review processes. So there's more information there. I'll kind of just go through a brief overview here. Due to the number of applications received, we created 3 review committees, each between 5 and 7 individuals in size, with 2 to 3 of the reviewers being Odo staff. We have kickoff meetings, check-in meetings, and wrap-up meetings. And the reviewers submitted their individual score sheets to the program. This process took around 6 weeks, and the program compiled those scores for discussion at the wrap-up meeting, and then for additional analysis. And also the Odo staff conducted a technical review of the construction projects. Just going to pause there. Is there any questions about the completeness and eligibility or competitive review process before I go on?
One note is just we do have a couple of folks that were on the external review committee listening in, as well as one person on the advisory committee that did double duty and was a reviewer. So when we get to the discussion in a little while, I'll keep tabs on if they want to weigh in at all. Okay. But you can go ahead, James.
Okay, next slide, please. So the final stage in the review process was the director's review. Program staff analyzed the data.
All right, let's give it a little drum roll or something. Okay, go ahead.
And presented the information to the director, who made the final decision. A total of 22 projects were selected to move forward with a performance agreement. Applicant types included a variety of local government, tribes, special government bodies. The projects are located in different areas of the state. Program staff have been notifying applicants this week for those that have been selected to move forward, just confirming whether they want to progress and beginning to compile specific details of each project that are required for performance agreements. We'll be working through our internal processes to send out a performance agreement to the applicants. Once the performance agreements have been sent out, the applicants have 30 calendar days to accept the performance agreements. And we'll be notifying all those not selected to move forward following directly after this meeting. We've just kind of been working through to ensure those that were selected wanted to move forward with the performance agreement process, just so that if there was any that didn't, we could kind of move through the list to see if any other funding could be allocated. So the next one note is that one project is still kind of confirming, so that is subject to change, as it is when we work through the performance agreements themselves. So next slide, we'll kind of just have the list of organizations themselves that we'll be getting. We'll be working through the performance agreements. And these organizations have been contacted, and then, as again, we'll be immediately following this meeting, program staff will be working to communicate with those that have not been selected to move forward, are there any questions regarding the director's review or what happens next with these projects?
Yeah, I think one thing I'll just flag is more detail about these projects will come out after we're able to get the performance agreement signed and do a little bit more public notice and everything. So this is like I said, I hadn't even seen this list. So it's like the first unveiling. I also just want to flag that the applicant that we're waiting to hear from is another tribal applicant, just in case anybody was wondering what type of applicant that was. So you'll see I'm seeing a strong contingent of projects coming from tribes on this list. Are there any projects that, does anybody want to, would you be willing to share like one or two, just an example of one or two of these that you thought were particularly interesting, just to sort of give us a little flavor? And that doesn't need to be James. I know Clay's like the one who's reviewed the applications the most closely, perhaps. But if there's a couple, you'd be willing to just give like a sentence or something like that. And I'm putting people on the spot, but I just thought it might be kind of helpful since all we're seeing is the name of the applicant.
While Clay collects his thoughts, because I will kick it over to him, I can just give a brief overview of it was predominantly solar projects, a lot of battery storage as well, microgrids. There was some biomass and also some hydro in there as well, just kind of a general overview. We did exceed those budgetary targets in terms of the budget spend, at least in terms of moving forward performance agreements on resilience projects and qualifying communities. Clay, if you have any additional thoughts you want to mention, please feel free.
That did
provide. Yeah, this is dangerous because I just love all of these projects, and and the ones that aren't on this list, we just have some great efforts going on out there, and I'm looking forward to just the additional rounds and getting keep those applications coming so we can keep that money going out to get these things built. But the Wallowa County one is particularly interesting because that's a planning grant for a very ambitious, having a 3-city hub of resilience in 3 cities in the 3 major cities in the county, having resilience and renewable energy combined to add really high levels of resilience and renewables to 3 towns in the county. Southern Oregon University, I think, sort of leads the way too, as they continue to expand their renewable energy on campus. And this is their request was just to continue to expand their already significant investments in renewable energy and resilience. And then the high desert biomass will be the last one, I guess, just because it pops into my head, because it's combining two, I think, with one of the other applicants, or connected, not combining, but connected, because it's a very unique district heating. It's not geothermal district heating, but it is district heating, and providing that thermal heat to really good members of that community and the structures, and expanding to a veterans housing facility, and then a future connection to a tribal facility as well in Burns. So I just think that's an existing program, and their grant money was to expand so they can connect more folks to their district heating project.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for helping me to understand a little bit better what we're seeing here, and hopefully that helps the advisory committee members and members of the public too. Really exciting. One flag, I just want to reiterate something that I've tried to say everywhere, is that we had $27 million in applications and $12 million to in this opportunity announcement. So there was, just from hearing that there were good projects that we hope reapply, right? So just want to make sure that I give that plug, because I know that there are applicants on the line, perhaps some that didn't get projects funded, and want to make sure that that in many cases it was because of the limited resources, but we're opening up another round, which is what we'll get to in just a second. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, if that works for you, James.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. Any questions that the committee members might have, but then just some guiding questions to help us get talking. Just what do you think we could or should do differently in reviewing applications? I invite In this case, I know we've got at least 2 external reviewers. If they have thoughts that they would like to raise their hands, I'd be happy to grab you out of the audience. I know also that Gail Malcolm I believe Gail served on as an external reviewer as well. But it looks like she's not on the line anymore. But anyway, thought I would just invite feedback from them. And then the other question is, do you have any concerns with the process or outcome that we should hear about? And as folks speak up, one thing, I think I already tried to pop Gail up, but if we could get Gail Malcolm up as a committee member, that'd be great, so she can participate freely. Thanks. All right, Lou was one of our external reviewers, I believe, right? So Lou, if we'll take you off mute and hear if you have any thoughts on what we could or should do differently in the review or any concerns. I don't have the power to unmute you, so I'm hoping Patricia can do that for me. All right, you should be able to talk now, Lou. Thanks.
I wanted to say, first of all, I didn't really have any concerns with the process or the outcome. Pleased with the outcome. And I also just really pleased with the opportunity to give of my time and look at these different projects. One thing that kept coming up for me as I was looking at the formatting of how you ask the questions and what appeared first, this is maybe just a small thing. I've seen an overview of the project first, as they tell us about what the project is. And what I remember was some of these questions about partnership. And when people, like when the response was, no, we don't have any partners, and then some would say yes, and they would be the same kind of partners. I came to the conclusion that the concept of partnership maybe is not completely understood. And in my mind, it wasn't as a result, because what looked like people who would be partners would answer the question is not. So those are the 2 things that came up for me. I'd like to see kind of an overall description of the project in the very beginning, because that helped set me up for understanding what the rest of the pieces would be. But that happened more toward the middle, and so I had to put the pieces together and try to pull it all together in my head.
Great.
So that's just
great. Thanks, Lou. I love it. Gail, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with him. You kind of had to find your way, and you were halfway through before you really figured out what they were trying to do. So yeah, at the beginning, that would an overview would be helpful. Also, there were a couple of questions that were consistently left blank or boxes in the middle of it. And I think at the beginning you said that somebody said that was going to be the case. So I kind of ignored those because it was pretty consistent across the board. I didn't completely understand that, but if that's going to happen in the next round, we probably should just take those out, because I imagine that's confusing to the applicant.
Yeah, we'll be talking a little bit about the changes we're making to the application in a minute, but thanks for the
I was having some audio, video, all kinds of issues, but I was listening.
Great, thanks, Gail. I saw you coming and going. I was like, "Where's Gail?"
I was trying to VPN in, and finally I just had to do something different. So,
all right, sorry for WebEx flummoxing you. I really appreciate hearing from both of you.
No, it was on our side, so it was on the utility side.
All right, any other thoughts from our advisory committee? And again, if there's thoughts from the members of the public they want to throw in the chat, that's fine too. But from our advisory committee, what do you think we could or should do differently in reviewing? Do you have any concerns? And then Ale has her hand up. So go ahead and whenever you're ready, Ale.
Yeah, thank you. This is really exciting. It's been so much work, so I'm super happy to see all these applicants and being able to be part of the new cycle coming up. I wanted to kind of mostly touch on, because I wasn't part of the reviewing process, kind of just wondering how the committee could help with improving the application or reviewing process. Like, what does that look like for feedback or for developing so that there's improvements for the next time? And just kind of like, how is also the committee aware of like how the scoring sheets are set up or kind of those pieces so that the committee could also kind of understand what's happening during that review process.
Great. Thanks, Ollie. I think we did, I believe, share the scoring sheets in the Wayback Machine with the advisory committee to get feedback. And we can, I'm sure we'd be happy to share any changes that we're planning to make to that and remind people what it looks like, and if there's anything anyone wants to add. So I'll add that to my takeaway list to make sure we get that back out if it's changed at all. And if not, just at least send it out so people know that that's what it looked like. I would love it if one of our wonderful CREP staffers can talk about the wrap-up meetings that you did with the external reviewers, because I'd be surprised if we didn't ask what things they noticed and thought should change in the application going forward. So I'd welcome anybody who was part of those wrap-up meetings to share anything from that.
Sure, I can jump in. So the wrap-up meetings were generally a chance for the reviewers to discuss the scoring, the applications themselves, as well as providing feedback. We just kind of open discussion forum, and we also welcome feedback from the reviewers by email, just kind of about the process as well. So just kind of the wrap-up meetings themselves served as a way to kind of just discuss the applications, the scoring as a whole, to kind of just wrap up the whole process. But we are obviously welcome feedback regarding any improvements that can be made in the future.
So this is Gail.
Yeah, great.
Can I make a comment? So I don't recall if it was in the wrap up or if I think initially it was when we were being given instructions on how we were going to go about doing this review. And one of the team members made a comment about, we're going to come from different perspectives. I think we were halfway through and we did a check-in, and we're coming from different perspectives. And then later on, someone said, and some of these applications are going to be not thrown out, but given, or they're giving less of a score because their grammar or their spelling, or it was just thrown together. And at the time, one of the staffers reminded us that was the whole point, was that we're all coming from a different perspective, because they were asking, how do we calibrate with one another or something? And I appreciated that staffer saying, well, we're coming from all different perspectives, and that we would have to try to just be consistent for ourselves across the board. So even though I saw the grammatical errors, I saw some poor writing sometimes, the project itself was worthy. And so I really tried to keep that in mind. But when we got to the wrap up and someone said, yeah, just some of them were so terrible, terribly written. And you could tell the ones that were where a professional was involved, as if that was giving it more merit. The staffer didn't remind us again that that was the whole idea. But by that time we had already scored and it was wrapping up. But maybe for the next time, I mean, that's the beauty of having a cross section of people on your committee is, I come from a small utility, and these small utilities don't have a lot of staff people. And a lot of times it's the engineers or whoever that are just trying to bang these things out, not because the project isn't worthy, but because they don't have staff time or staff people, or they can't wait till the next 1 month or 2 months to ask their board if they can hire a consultant, which they may or may not get. So I don't know if that has to do with the length of time that these things are open, or if it has to do with just giving some grace on some of the not that I want sloppy applications, you want well thought out pieces, but there's a difference between grammar and complete sentences and worthy projects.
Yeah.
You see
That's a
what
really,
I'm not articulating that very well, but you see what I'm saying?
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
There's and it, I don't want to say it might be cultural differences or something like that, but I come from an Alaskan village and I know what those grant applications look like. But I also know that the need is there and they just need someone to polish that. And sometimes they don't have that person to polish it, especially some of the smaller places. And so I'm just saying that
Yeah. That's a
that
really
reminder, whichever staff person it was, it was a good reminder for us at the beginning and maybe a reminder to us in the middle of the process again.
That's great, Gail. And you're getting some good reactions from your fellow members of the advisory committee in different ways. I saw some hearts and a comment saying thanks for making that point. So I think loud and clear, thank you. We'll make sure that we consider how to better articulate that throughout the process in the future. It's exactly the kind of conversation and feedback we're wanting to get. So thank you. So we have about a couple minutes left on this topic. If anybody wants to weigh in, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll get to you after I just ask staff to answer a quick question. There was guidance in the chat, thanks Scott, about clarifying what constitutes a complete application that is eligible for competitive review in future rounds. We did have, somebody will have to remind me of the number, we had 10 applications that didn't go through to the review process because either the application was deemed incomplete, and we hope those folks get them complete and reapply. And then there's also a subset of folks that weren't eligible. As you know, public bodies are eligible. So we had some I can't remember the split. I think it was maybe 4 applications that came in from folks that weren't public bodies. But is there anything that we could say about the incomplete applications, any themes or anything like that before we move on of just sort of what we saw there? That led to folks needing to wait till the next round to complete their applications.
I think there wasn't generally themes. It was just we have the list of required information in each of the opportunity announcements, and when that was kind of missed or wasn't available, then that was where that was kind of deemed incomplete, and then some of it was whether the applicant or the project itself wasn't eligible, because in some cases it was a project itself didn't meet the criteria that the bill establishes.
Renewable energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot of questions along the way that were like, can we do this? And we're like, well, no, it needs a renewable energy component. And I think still some of those applications slipped in for things where they didn't have the renewable energy component, right?
Well, we can certainly take on the advice of potentially looking at what guidance we can provide to in the next round about what is a complete application. And so yeah, we'll take that on board.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Anything else from our advisory committee? And then I'll move us on to what's next. All right. Well, I'm excited to introduce you all to our newest member. Oh, wait, not quite. Before we get to the newest member, we're going to bring back Clay. As we kind of transition from what happened in the past and what's happening next, we wanted to give an example of something that we caught along the way as a staff, and that I'm sure our external reviewers also caught wind of, and that we're already making plans of how to fix, just so you can kind of see the growth mindset that we're trying to bring to this program and bring you along and helping us to have that lessons learned and make improvements and changes. So Clay, it is your turn again.
Hi, thanks, Christy. Right, so you can take a look at this long sentence paragraph question that we had. And as we looked at the answers to this compound question around environmental justice communities, the answers varied from simply repeating the description of the project's physical location and ignoring the environmental justice aspects of the question, to answers that included large amounts of data uploaded from a variety of sources about the different criteria of an environmental justice community, to detailed answers around the environmental justice community, but with no supporting data. And so to encourage a more focused answers in the next round, we broke apart this question into two yes/no questions. And then if the answer is yes, first of all, allowing applicants to just answer no. And then if they answer yes, then requiring the specific details for that part of the question. And so this is the round one question. And then the first part is the next slide will be how we broke that up. And I'll go through those two. And basically this question was asking two things. It's asking about the location of the project and how is it located in a environmental justice community, and then around the service to the environmental justice community that project provides. And some of the answers got jumbled because of the compound nature of the question. Let's see, is the next slide, are you guys gone to the next slide or have I frozen? I'm sorry.
I can.
Oh, thank you. Great, so now we just simply ask, is the project located in an environmental justice community, yes or no? And if yes, tell us about that community and where the project is located. And so a little bit more direct and hopefully a little bit more focused. And then the second part we made also into a separate question. Next slide, please. And then we ask this question more directly, does the project primarily serve members of the environmental justice community? Yes or no? If yes, tell us how. And we think that just a lesson learned, we hope that will get us better answers and make it easier to score and evaluate the support that these projects are providing. Thank you. And I will go on now and I'll hand it over to Jason, who gets to introduce himself and talk about what's coming up in round two.
Wait, Jason, before you get started, I noticed that Lou, who's our reviewer, who we heard from a second ago, raised his hand. And so, Lou, go ahead if you have like a quick thing you want to share about this before we move on. That'd
really
be great.
Quickly, is there a universal understanding of what environmental justice community means? Because just because it's capitalized, it sort of stands out as being something more formal. And is there going to be some definition around that? Because as someone who'd be applying for that maybe in the future, I want to not make assumptions.
Yeah, I will just share that there's a statutory definition of it that we shared, I believe, in the opportunity announcements. And then we also put out some guidance on environmental justice communities for applicants as well. So we've provided like a couple of different things that people can look at in trying to figure that out, because we know it's either a new concept to people or nebulous. Like it can mean one thing in one place and one thing in another place, right? So that's how we handle that.
Thank you.
Looks like somebody popped something in the chat. Thank you. It looks like the statutory definition is in the chat. And then again, we provided some further guidance too. So we'll continue to do educating for applicants on that in the opportunity announcements and other resources. All right, Jason, now our newest team member gets to come on.
Well, hello, everybody. And you did switch the slide. My name is Jason Knaus. I'm also a program analyst with the Community Renewable Energy Grants Program, working in tandem with Clay. And I started, I believe today is my 1 month. I began towards the 1st of September. And that was towards the end of the first round's competitive review process, which was also a great time to come on board the team. Really propelled me in to quickly learn about the program simultaneously with the applications that were in process. And that was all leading into our award selection rounds and leading into the round 2 preparation. Back over to this slide here, along with the changes that Clay had mentioned before, there was also additional application changes that have already been made or put in process or are currently under advisement for revision as we go into round 2. And for example, towards the close of round 1, the program team reviewed the structure and language of several of just your general application questions, the verbiage, and we looked at those for additional improvements to try to clarify, to try to receive better answers in those fields, as well as better supporting documentation to the application answer, supporting that answer with specific documentation, which we're working towards. And we use the applicant feedback from the during the application process on what information or details that we were requesting, and ideally to receive that information within the application, as I said, and with additional supporting documents. In a lot of cases, we were getting throughout the first round, we were getting attachments that were essentially the application along with supporting details. So we're trying to help clean that up, as well as assist our reviewers in that regard as well. And in addition to that, following the competitive review process, the program team identified some of the key applicant responses and the data that we've now realized that's necessary to provide both project summaries, as well as to be able to pull reporting data, and to prepare applications for the Director's Award selection review process and the subsequent performance review process, which we're in right now. And so for round 2, we're also working quickly to update those requirements on the applications to those priority questions in order to further streamline all of our various review processes and reporting requirements as we move through round 2 and into subsequent rounds. And if we could go to the next slide, please. And so here on this slide, we're looking at what we have right now as our tentative plan as we move into round 2. And as you can see that we're going to be publishing the round 2 opportunity announcements here in the next in the next short period in October. And that also is going to be followed with the application opening. That application will be closing in mid-December, as we will then move into our completion and eligibility review, and that is through mid-December to the end of January. That time frame is extended slightly as we're taking account of the holiday time and people's ability and time off, etc. And following that, those applications that make it into competitive review, that will begin in early February of next year and will continue through mid-March. And that's going to contain our competitive review with our external and internal teams, as well as our internal technical feasibility teams. And then that will start to wrap up round 2 around mid-April as we move those finalists into the Director's Award process for final selection of round 2 applications. And then we start it all over again for round 3. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Christy, but I did want to say thank you to all the advisory committee members. I know I'm brand new, but I've seen some of your prior work. And thank you for taking the time to support and consult and advise the program. And I look forward to working with each of you.
Thanks, Jason. Right on. They have spent a lot of time helping us put this program together, which is why we've loved their advice so much and taken it so seriously. And that's why we're back today. So really quickly, I just want to flag what's kind of not here right below would be that we actually then wait until we get the rest of the money that was sent our way in House Bill 2021. We need the legislature to tell us we can spend that money. So just know there will be a gap between mid-April and between this application being open. You'll see that it'll close by mid-December, and we're not able to open up again right away because we'll have to wait to get that money. So next advisory committee meeting we're planning on holding in December. So I'll reach out with a way to get that scheduled. We want to get ahead of session, obviously, for some of our advisory committee members who will be really busy with that. And at that, we'll take the opportunity to report on who's applied for round 2, and then really dig in on public engagement ahead of round 3. Because if you do the math, we're going to have this period of time where we'll have capacity to reach out to communities in a way that we haven't had capacity to so far, as we've been staffing up and running the program, all happening sort of concurrently. But we're going to take advantage of the little break that we'll have and get out there and do some different sorts of public engagement. And we'd love your feedback and thoughts on how we can do that. So stay tuned. And then also, like I mentioned briefly, that we're now calling CREP. Thanks, Jenny Hall, for teaching us the acronym that we've now adopted for advisory committees that have members that haven't heard that one yet. The Community Renewable Energy Grant Program will be at the legislature. I wanted to flag that it's in our budget, our base budget for those who speak budget in the legislature, because House Bill 2021 had already given us the money. We just need permission to spend it with the passage of our budget, is the way that it looks like it will be right now. I also just wanted to flag that the small scale, we call it the small scale study. Somehow I wrote small scale report, but the House Bill 2021 also directed us to do a study on small scale and community renewable energy projects. And that study unearthed pretty much consensus around supporting the CREP program continuing, not just in the next 2 years, as was laid out in House Bill 2021, but longer term. And the other thing that we heard there is that people were interested in potentially down the road opening that the program up to more types of applicants. As you know, we are only open to public bodies. I think that's personally a great approach from a risk perspective, but others have talked about the fact that it is chilling to folks who don't necessarily want to work with a city or locality to do a clean energy project. Or I guess public body, it's not just a city or locality. So those were two things that made it into that study about this report that I just wanted to flag for our advisory committee members. And then I already mentioned that round 3 can't start until the 23-25 biennium, and know that it will probably take us after session passes, there's like a period of time where sort of everything's sort of being put together in the back rooms before we actually are released the funds. So just know that we'll be anxiously awaiting being able to move forward after the legislative session ends in June, late June of this coming year. So on that note, final, just quick things before we move to public comment. If anyone does want to make public comment, raise your hand now, because that will kind of determine how long we'll let our committee go. I didn't see anybody planning at the beginning of the meeting to make public comment. But just some quick thoughts that we've had just about staff supporting reapplicants without creating conflicts of interest. Or any thoughts that anyone has on groups we should connect with based on those gaps in the applicant pool. I already shared one, but it looks like maybe I could follow up with Oriana about it's in biomass. I can't remember now. I'll go back and look at the recording if I need to, but somebody else will remember what other type of project wasn't being seen there.
It was geothermal.
Geothermal. Thank you very much, Ale. Any thoughts on this? I don't see any hands up for public comment. So thanks. Everybody remembers except for me. Great. I can scroll back to the list of the people, the winners. I like that. But to the folks who got awarded grants this time. And as a reminder, I want people to reapply. So I'll go back to that. But the questions, just to remind people, were just around any thoughts on helping reapplicants to have stronger applications without creating conflicts, or any thoughts on filling those gaps.
Could we also go back to the map that had or where you were talking about, I was having audio and video problems. Go back, the one right before this, when we get done with this one.
Yeah. I'll give this one like 10 seconds and then I'll go back to that one. That sounds good.
Hey, Christy, this is Ale. I'm also wondering, is there a place where folks could see what these projects are?
Yeah, did the list we send of I'd have to look back. Did we have, I'm not remembering what detail we put into that list that we sent out to you all that's posted on our website of the applicants, but I can find out how we can share that.
Yeah, for the applicants, it was a type of project, the organization name, the type of organization, and then the amount requested.
But not the details.
Right. So just wondering if the details will be public facing, or just anywhere where folks could find what these projects are.
Yeah, the details, I believe, when we do the sort of more public release, more formal release, I guess is maybe a better way of putting it, we'll have details about what the projects are at that point. And then essentially, like, everything's public, so we can always release details to folks as requested. So but we'll be telling those stories, because we want those stories told of what these projects are, right? So we'll make sure that the advisory committee sees that information when we send it out publicly. And Gail, here's our map, which we feel pretty good about for the first time around, but Yeah, you can see your neck of the woods is one that I mentioned did not have anybody. Or I guess north of you.
Well, actually, well, that's just the Western Lane County, and yeah, I see.
You're
There's a
good.
couple
North of
counties,
you.
but the three there look like they come from part of our service area,
Yeah,
and
for
so.
sure. Yeah.
But I guess what I was looking for was the number of utilities, consumer-owned utilities that applied. I was curious about that. Of course, I didn't sit on any of the. I didn't sit in
Looks
the
like
review panel
4.
for those.
We
So
had
there was
4
one.
consumer-owned utilities apply, and 1 people's utility district.
Right, which is
Friends,
yeah,
cousins.
that's not bad. I just wanted to make sure they were in there, because the legislature went to great pains to try to include them, at least in the language. So.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, it's 2:59. I hope this has felt like a productive conversation for our advisory committee members. I have a couple of follow-ups with the group, so I will make sure that I take care of that in the near future, including sending out something to get something on the calendar, probably later this month when people might have a better idea what their Decembers look like. But we'll be trying to aim between the application closing and the holidays. So wish me luck finding a good time for everyone. Any last questions? I don't see any public comment. And
so do we have access to these slides, or they're usually posted on the?
Yeah, we
okay,
actually
thanks.
didn't post them in advance because these 2 slides like just got posted.
Right. No,
So,
that's okay.
yeah.
I can go to the website and pick
Yeah.
this information up.
We'll get them online. All right. Well, thank you so much for the time, everyone. And thanks so much to the 30 members of the public who joined us. I think we would have like 8 last time we were talking about this in the past. So it's really nice to see so many folks on the line. And I'll stick around in case anybody has questions for a few minutes. But they just don't want to be in the formal meeting, but want to ask.
Thank you, Christy, and thanks everybody. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. All right, well, it doesn't seem like anybody had any questions for us offline a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and end the meeting, but thank you so much for joining us. Oh, Thomas, it looks like you wanted to be unmuted. I'm glad I caught you. Are you still here? Let's see. Patricia, are you still hanging out? Do we still have Thomas? Could you take him off mute? Hi, there you go.
Yeah, thanks for presenting and for sharing this information with us. My name is Thomas. I work with Kelly Nonprofit Consulting, and we helped out the High Desert Biomass Cooperative application. I'm super excited to see that on there. They're doing really great work out there. I was wondering why you have it listed as being in the city of Hillsborough.
Oh, no, it's just 2 columns.
It's 2 different columns. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So City of Hillsborough got 1 and High Desert Biomass.
Got it. Thank you. I was like, this is some. I was looking back through the application. I was like, did we?
No.
Insane type.
None of these. Yeah, no. I don't even know where Academy for Character of Education is, but it's probably not in talent.
All right. Well, thank you so much for clearing that up.
Yeah, no problem.
Very excited to see them on there.
Great. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right. Now I'm gonna go.
Thanks, Christy.
Bye.
Bye.